So Helen, how great to see you. And thank you for coming to our conference here today, Lock in the Lakes. It's wonderful to see you.
Yeah, well, I hope next time I'll be able to come, face to face, because I've been hearing so many amazing things about the spirit of Lock in the Lake. So I'm glad I can at least join you virtually.
Yeah, and Helen, it's so good you can come, partly because you have this great perspective from, if you like, often people talk about seeing from the balcony or from the helicopter, and your wider perspective is really what we'd like to talk to you about today and hear from. And I would just start with a question related to the fact that clearly we're all dealing with aging populations, we're all dealing with more technology and new things that we can do with people. Most places, and here in Cumbria it's a particular problem, have workforce pressures and so on. The combination of those two things is creating a massive workload pressure in health and care. And the first thing I was going to ask you is your comments on this is not just a Cumbria thing, is it? What's your perspective both nationally and internationally of how people are approaching the pressures of aging populations, more work to do, and so on?
What I'd say, Stephen, is it's a problem everywhere.
Yeah,
Um, and I think, it's particularly in England. I mean, there's no part of England that isn't impacted by this pressure.
yeah,
I think that there's different ways that different places are tackling the issues. I think that when we look across England, at good practice, there are places that I think are doing better in terms of creating the circumstances where we can redesign what we're doing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
uh, I think Cumbria has got particular geographical issues, but I also think that many of the opportunities around thinking about how we can do things differently, how we can redesign care, how we can redesign roles are as pertinent in Cumbria, as they are anywhere.
yeah. And it's interesting you talk about thinking differently because last time you were up here with us, everybody remembers you saying that what we needed to do was rock the boat but not fall out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could give us an overview of how you see thinking differently at the moment.
I think we need to think differently in so many different ways.
Yeah,
Um, so I think the key thing about thinking differently is to get the opportunity to think with some other people. So this is like at the heart of diversity. It's interesting. I used to think that diversity was important because it was a good thing to do.
yeah,
I linked diversity very much with inclusion, and just because people are different, we still need their skills, we still need their perspective in an inclusive world. What I've learned is just how important diversity is for innovation and thinking differently. So,
right.
I'd say the first thing about thinking differently is that we need different voices. Um, we need the voices of our population, of our communities. We need the voices of our staff at the point of care, and we need other voices from outside. And I spend a lot of my time linking up with people in other industries, in other systems, because I think at the heart of thinking differently is about learning from other people's experiences and seeing what we can take from that and bring to our own service. So for instance, I was talking to somebody the other day who is a paramedic, and there are real issues in ambulance services about PTSD,
Yeah,
and how we identify and support people with PTSD. And very often in ambulance services, there's a culture, which is, well, it's kind of part of the job, it's how it is. And even though there's going to, when we look at the people plan, there's going to be proposals to say, actually, we're going to make it much easier for people to get mental health support, you've got to kind of want it in the first place.
yeah,
So this paramedic that I was talking to was actually setting up a project with the security services, with GCHQ, because they've got a brilliant system that they've got people, you know, who are agents and I presume they're spies. I don't even know if I'm meant to even say this. But you know, they're in very high risk situation, so they have mandatory monitoring of these people in high risk situations. So what this paramedic project is taking that learning, that different thinking from security services, and saying, how can we apply that to our ambulance colleagues?
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess it's a very long way of me saying, I think that at the heart of thinking differently, it's very easy to very hard, I think, to come up with original ideas in our own settings. Actually, if we can start mixing with people with different ideas and different perspectives, it makes thinking differently, I think, much easier.
Right, right. So if I've understood you correctly, we both need to look across and within our organizations and our partnerships in health and care, but also look out and
Yes.
find resources both locally and regionally to help us with those productivity problems, with innovation issues, with
Yeah.
just ways of working
Yeah.
to tackle the pressures.
And sometimes we think, you know, we're so under pressure. It's so difficult just doing the jobs that we do every day. We think that we create the most value by doing the jobs.
Yes.
Actually, very often we create the most value by finding out what other people are doing and bringing back new ideas around doing things in better ways. So, you know, we have to understand that being innovative and creating the space, you know, to learn from other people is just as value adding as doing a clinical job. We need to
Yeah.
do both.
And just to develop that point a little bit, have you got any tips for, you know, here in the room now are, you know, lots of clinicians, nurses, doctors, as well as managers who are in exactly the position you've just described, to be able to get to sort of 6 or 7 o'clock this evening in good shape is a hard enough challenge without thinking too much about how can we make it different tomorrow or next week. So have you got any tips or ideas from elsewhere that might help people just break into that cycle of, I am so busy, I can't
Yeah.
think about how to do it differently?
Yeah, I think that's a situation that so many of our colleagues in the health and care system are in.
Yeah,
So I think, you know, we have to be realistic about this. So I think, you know, so much of this is doing things in small ways. So
right.
we're not suddenly overnight going to revolutionize, you know, the way that we provide care for a particular group of people. But what we can do is make some small things happen. You know, what we can do is just make, you know, little changes. You know, sometimes we talk about marginal gains, 1% here, 1% there, and all those 1% can add up to quite a lot of, you know, percents. So, you know, I think the opportunity to just do some small things. And I'd also say, if we don't break into the way that things are now, it's never going to change. So, you know, we have to find ways of doing that, even small ways. And you know, there's quite a lot of evidence about it's called leverage points within a system. So if you
Yeah,
actually want to change a system, you know, where are the best leverage points?
right.
And what it tells us is actually, you know, very often what we start to think about is, oh, well, let's redesign the process, or let's redesign the incentive systems. And those things are important. But, you know, where the real leverage points are for changing a system are about the way that we think about the system, you know, the mindset we have about it. So, you know, even when we're crazy busy, you know, how can we actually find some space to start looking at things and thinking about things in different ways and changing our perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I don't think there are any easy solutions, but finding ways to create some space and to connect up with other people. And you know, in the past we always had to do that face to face, and now, you know, more and more we can do things virtually. We can be in a WhatsApp group with other people. We can be in a virtual community. I think there are real benefits of doing things face to face, like you are today.
Yeah.
you know, but it doesn't always have to be face to face. It can be a mixture.
Yeah. So again, if I reflect that back to you, there is an element of using the tools and techniques for improvement and so on to get those little gains. But at the same time, we have to change our mindset about
Yeah,
what it is that makes our systems work. So we're doing the process improvements, but alongside, we're also trying to change the way we think.
yeah, and we have to do both. And you know, when we talk about complex change, it's just full of paradoxes.
Right.
And I think this is an absolute core paradox at the heart of improvement. You know, we have to do both. And I think that actually doing small changes and small gains, it gives us a sense of confidence and hope and belief that we can do things in different ways.
Right.
And also, I think quite understandably, a lot of people are cynical or skeptical about change because, you know, we've been here so many times, we've tried things that haven't worked, so why is it going to be any different this time? So actually doing some really small scale change and showing that we mean business and that we're going to carry this through will actually bring other people with us who maybe we couldn't have brought with us previously.
Yeah. To look at the same subject from a sort of 90-degree angle for a second, Helen, another big issue for us is the reported position of morale and so on in the staff survey.
Yeah.
We have to recognise that a lot of staff are in a very difficult place and that
Yes.
they're finding their job hard to do, they're finding their manager difficult, or they're finding lack of reward in what they're doing, they're finding the culture difficult, and so on and so forth. And I wonder if you have any tips for the very senior managers in the room, the executives and the directors and so on, about the leadership challenge in the context when, as you said, we're asking people to both look across their organization, but look outwards, to do lots of small things, to change their mindset, and so on and so forth. What is it our leaders have to do to enable us, if you like, to feel comfortable doing that? And I'm trying not to make a leading question here. You can
Sure.
tell,
Yeah, I
Helen, but
know.
I'd be interested in your view about what the leadership challenge is to enable these things to happen.
Yeah. So, you know, one big opportunity that we've got coming at the end of March is the NHS People Plan.
Yeah.
And what's currently called the Leadership Compact, I don't know whether it's finally going to be called that, you know, sets out a whole set of leadership behaviours for the future.
Right.
And I think they're great. And in a sense, it's like holding up a mirror to us as senior leaders and saying, you know, to what extent are we behaving in this way? And, you know, what do we need to do differently? Because in terms of, you know, us as senior leaders, we've never really been judged on our behaviours before, except if, you know, we're doing really bad things.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the first time we've actually had this compact. And, you know, a compact is, you know, it's a contract. It's a relationship, and I think, you know, to actually to take the opportunity, the gift of
Yeah.
that leadership compact, and to actually make some space and some time to say, what does that mean for us? And, you know, understanding that change begins with me. You know, what is it about the way that I'm behaving and the things that I'm doing that are creating these consequences, you know, for other people? And, you know, as senior leaders, we're role models, we're signal generators, and other people will be watching and listening and what we're doing. And actually, you know, when it comes to influencing people to change behaviors, you know, we know that leadership role modeling is like the most powerful approach that, you know, that we can do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's about having the courage and giving the priority to actually spend time together, you know, as groups of senior leaders, and maybe with, you know, wider groups in our organizations, you know, to actually take some time to reflect. And, you know, I see this on my visits around the system. So, for instance, the staff survey and, you know, getting the results, and what do we do about the results of the staff survey? And I see organizations and systems that are really organized around that. You know, they've given training to all the frontline supervisors, all the middle managers, about how to work with the staff survey results, because the staff survey results are a gift to us.
Yeah.
And you know, how are we sitting down and really listening to what people are saying? And like the places that do it badly, you know, I've seen it happen where you know, what we see is, you know, the manager will sit down with a group of people and say, well, why did you say that then? Why are you saying that about me? You know,
Yeah.
versus places where as senior leaders, we're really giving space and permission and power and skills to our frontline supervisors and leaders to you know to do the post staff survey work in a way where we're really sitting down, we're listening, we're understanding, and we're co-creating with our teams how we want the future to be.
Yeah. And maybe that's the place to finish as well, because co-creating and co-producing, right at the very beginning, you said, we've got to look out towards our patients and to our communities and to the people who we serve as inspiration, not just for how we innovate and change our processes, but how we act and how we behave as
Yes,
well.
yes.
So have you got any message for us about that kind of co-production piece and how we should be working with our communities?
It is. So, you know, when I look around the country, both local government colleagues, you know, colleagues in health and care, what I see happening, and something I feel really excited about, is a move upstream.
Yeah.
So, you know, very often the way that we are providing, you know, health and care, it's a downstream service. You know, what we're doing is we're treating deficits. And we're kind of taking power away from people because that's what we're doing. Whereas if you know, and I think it's like one of the things that inspires me most about public health and the kind of public health message, you know, if we truly move upstream and we start from the reality of you know, people's lives and you know, the opportunity to shape the support and the interventions from a place of, you know, what matters to me, and the things that I truly want in my life. So rather than a, you know, an upstream service around, you know, this is the pathway, this is what you get, you know, how do we reshape that into an upstream support system that is about what matters to me, that starts from really listening to the realities of people's lives and you know, and what we want and need. And there's some really exciting work that I'm involved in around how we segment people, because, you know, very often when we're thinking around, you know, population health, we think about segmentation. So we think about how we segment people clinically by clinical condition or level of risk. We think about how we segment people demographically, you know, by their characteristics. And there's this whole new movement that's coming globally, and the technical term for it is psychographics. So actually how we segment people psychographically, and psychographics means understanding what matters in people's lives, and their personalities, their preferences, their you know, their intrinsic motivators. So yeah, I see this whole new movement coming, and I'm really excited to be part of the discussions about that.
Helen, thank you so much. It's really great to hear you. As usual, you've stimulated us to think about lots of sorts of things. Our Learning Festival here today is all the better for you being able to join us. You know, it's great for us, I think, up in here in Cumbria to see you as one of our national leaders, very much talking about the changes that you recognise have got to happen from the top of the office with their people plan right the way through to the way we think on the ground and the way middle managers and supervisors and so on, as you say, are supported to enable them to think differently. So thank you for testing us out today. Thank you for giving us some ideas. And we look forward to when you can join us
I will.
in one of these events in reality. That's great. Thank you very much, Helen.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. And you know, I hope that the rest of the festival goes really, really well.
Thanks very much.